Is up, folks, and welcome to the Daily Sales Show hosted by Sal Better. Today I'm joining on my phone because we just had some last minute panic due to some internet issues, but we made it raw. I'm being joined today by the wonderful Ryan Pereus. Ryan, how you doing?
I'm great, man. I'm excited to be here, excited to talk to everybody.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to have you because the topic today is a belter. We're going to be talking about the 10 different strategies. We're going to be going through 10 different tips that you can use to nail the first 30 seconds of your cold calls. Ryan's going to be walking through those with us. Ryan, tell us a bit about yourself. Where'd you come from?
Yeah, I'm based out of the Philadelphia area and started Superhuman prospecting about 7 or 8 years ago when I was doing scripts and training, and people said, "Hey, we like your copy, we like your training, but we actually just never want to do these." So started Superhuman prospecting, and now we have 45 wonderful team members across the country.
Beautiful. Love to hear it. So you run a cold outbound agency, which means that you must be working across a bunch of different industries and seeing all types of cold calls. Am I hearing you right?
Yes, sir. Primarily in the B2B space, a little bit of B2C. We'd like to get a bit more into it, but primarily B2B.
We're all about that B2B life here. Awesome. Everyone else who's here, use the chat. Make sure you're sending stuff to everyone. Let us know where you're coming in from and what you do and who you sell to. That'd be awesome to see. But before we jump into the main session of the show today, a few housekeeping points. These shows are always recorded. You can watch all of our past shows on Salvador.xyz, and you can see the recording for this one as soon as, later today. You can also see our upcoming shows over there. There was actually a really good one last on Friday about cold emailing. Anyone who joined that, it was an absolute riot. This one's going on the cold calling side, though. I want to say a big, big thank you to our partners for today's show. We wouldn't be able to make these shows possible without partners like the folks over at JustCall. JustCall is a company that allows you to make more efficient outbound dials. Also being partnered with Outbound Squad and SendSpark, two awesome companies. Outbound Squad offers training. SendSpark offers a video tool that allows you to create, record, and send prospecting videos at scale. Today, though, we are going to be walking through 10 tips, like we said, about the first 30 seconds of your call. We're not going to go any deeper than the first 30 seconds, I promise. So, Ryan, why don't we start off with the first tip, if you're ready? I thought before we even think about picking up the phone, technically the first 30 seconds is everything you do to prepare. And I think part of preparation is making sure you're setting yourself up to be as efficient as possible. So what are some ways that sellers can make sure they're as efficient as possible when they get time to go on the phone, whether they're doing that all day or just for a power hour?
Yeah, I think from a technology strategy perspective, sometimes it's a little bit counterintuitive. I think sometimes we think of technology as pure velocity or speed, such as parallel dialers or agent-assisted power dialers. And those things have a purpose. I think that they're extremely efficient. They can get a ton of work done, but sometimes it can be at the cost of your market. You can decimate your market if you're not careful about spam likely showing up or gaps between pickup and answer when someone picks up the phone. And it might just be a silent killer for your market and why you don't have good decision maker connect rates. Now, again, this is from someone who owns an outsourced SDR company. So we're representing so many different brands, and we want to make sure when we do that, we're doing it in a way that doesn't hurt the reputation. So what are some ways we can do that? Well, we do use a manual sales dialer, but when you use a manual sales dialer, we use VanillaSoft. It doesn't mean that we're sitting here punching a little dial pad. It just means that we're squeezing the most juice out of every opportunity. If we've picked that target correctly and they're good working phone numbers, then we're going to be leaving voicemails. We're going to be, going through phone trees, and we might even wait on the ring and ring a little bit longer than normal because we've had people pick up the phone after, 30 seconds to a minute or more. So some of those things that we don't think about can really actually help squeeze the most juice without, kind of hurting your market.
I was really surprised that you don't use any kind of parallel dialer or
Yeah.
even power dialer as an outbound agency because you must have your team calling all day long. So what do you expect from the members on your team in terms of activity?
Yeah. So, and again, I think we have a specific use case, but when we're calling the market, it's not only just about appointments that right then and there. It's also about having conversations with the secretaries, finding out who the right people are, what's the right number, what's the right phone tree to go through. So if we don't reach them the first time, what's a more efficient way to get there the next time? And all these things kind of lead up to more and more conversion. I mean, we've seen sometimes the third, fourth round of calls being the most converting in terms of decision maker connection rates. So I think
Mm.
you're just thinking about it almost like a tortoise and the hare approach. We think that the hare is going to get around faster, but we kind of get distracted and can kind of hurt what's behind us. Where with kind of a slower call, it might seem slower in the beginning, but you're actually cleaning up things and taking notes as you go. So things kind of build and snowball a little bit more.
Absolutely love that. Thank you so much for sharing that a bit of context about your team as well. I'm curious, those people in the chat, how many dials at your team is your manager or your entire team expected to make every single day or within your KPIs? I'm very curious to see the different ranges of what we see. 80 a day we got there, 50, 75, 40, 150. Phew, I thought that was 150 a day there. I was like, damn, that's definitely B2C. 60 to 65 a day. Okay, 40, 30, 50.
Yeah.
Check that out.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And it sounds like people are doing either they're doing with power dials or agent assisted, and they're doing a little time block,
Mm.
or they're pounding out some manual dials. Actually, I think the bridge group says the average SDR makes about 40 calls a day. So it's looking like it's right in there.
Awesome. I'm glad to see the audience uh, correlates with the data that we've seen out there. So let's move on to tip number two. Once we're being efficient, once we've kind of got our plan together, maybe we're using the time, maybe we're not, depending on our use case. How do we want to make sure that we're being prepared to make a call? And I think this can be done when you're building the list or even right before you make the call. How much preparation do you ask your team and you do yourself before you make a cold call?
Yeah, this was a good conversation we had, prior. I think that it really does depend on your market. Calling for the entire B2B marketplace is daunting, but it's also very enlightening about, what's needed or not. If you have a product that's only for a limited number of targets, then an account-based approach, a more personalized approach, research prior, finding out data and information prior to your outreach, can be what's required in order to make an impact because there's a lot of vendors, a lot of companies trying to reach them. So you have to have that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're, trying to reach a bigger market or you have more people, a larger persona pool that you can reach out to, the relevance to that market is more important. You'll get a general sense of the kind of common feedback when you're reaching out to these people, and then you can adjust your offering to how that market is responding. So if some say, hey, we might be too small for this, this doesn't really seem like it's be for bigger companies, and you're getting that feedback a lot, then you can adjust your offering and message to that type of persona. And it doesn't have to be
Mm.
as personal. You can have as good, if not better, sometimes of the conversion than account-based marketing in some situations.
Beautiful. So the tip there is know your personas and who and the
Yeah.
industries you're calling to better than necessarily spending 20 minutes looking at every individual prospect before you call them. So that's obviously not that efficient. Tip number three. I wanted to we kind of discussed beforehand because we know that cold calling beats our device. Everyone has an approach that works for them. So before we get into the tactical stuff about what to actually start saying on the call, that there is no one right way to cold call. And I know you have a great take on this, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the perfect caveat to then going into, what our
And
thoughts
this
are
is
on
how
what
we
might.
do it. And I'm right.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. It's just like a protection layer there before I get into this. But yeah, I think that it's true, right? Like our personalities, our specific skill sets, if we adapt them to the market, we can, make our own pathway. And I think that's certainly valid. And so if you have certain openers, if you have certain ways that you go about a conversation, um, and it works, then what's stopping you from continuing that? The challenge sometimes gets when you have to have success at scale very quickly. So you have multiple team members, multiple personalities, all different types of strategies. Well, how do you put that and make sure that the leads that you're setting are of quality across the board? That's a
Mm.
different question. So I think what we found with the H to H method that's applied at Superhuman is that if you can identify some of the bones of a conversation structure, then you can develop frameworks to then, as long as your team is hitting those checkpoints within the framework, use your own personality and authenticity to deliver that in an authentic way.
Yeah, I love that because it recognizes the fact that, Ryan, you and I can follow the exact same script, but, you and I are going to sound and have wildly different results if we say the exact same things. There is a chance to make it your own, but know the steps at least. So
That's
with
right.
all that said, and that caveat put in there, I'd love to hear your opener, Ryan.
My opener?
And yeah, and I mean, you also had a moment about permission-based openers, and I think you have a reason why you don't have a permission-based opener, which is asking permission up front.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why don't you walk us through what you say?
Yeah. So I think just a little, preemptive discussion about that. Uh, Permission based, I don't do them, but it doesn't mean that they don't work. I see them work all the time. So I think the thing is, I believe that openers are much more about the salesperson feeling comfortable and confident, which is huge to deliver an authentic conversation. So
Mm,
continue to do them. We encourage our team to do them if they feel comfortable, if they want to do that. We call it a preferential add-on, right? The biggest thing to me is how can you get to that first discovery question to get in a conversation that has bones, or meat to it. So mine's simple. I like the this is a cold call, this is a sales call. And I remember early on, yes, like, is that a permission based if you say that early on? And I don't think it is. I think it's more of a disclaimer, right? It's almost like this call is being recorded.
mm,
You're sharing that because then they can opt out at any time from that. They pick up the phone. It's a whole different thing. Is it interrupting a day and all that? I don't think so. But when I get into my call, I'll say, hey, this is Ryan with Superhuman Prospecting. This is a cold call. In fact, we do cold call appointment setting with USA-based team using a methodology for companies reaching out to those in the US. Do you have a team right now to get you 1 to 100 leads for your sales pipeline right now? Or have you considered an outsourced team before? And that's it. I try to get a little description of what we do, get them in the right frame of mind to think in since they weren't expecting my call, and
mm.
then jump into that question to get them in a conversation.
That's interesting.
That's
I'm
me.
curious. You're catching someone off guard sometimes. Do they always hear what that first question is? Because I think sometimes there's so many questions in a prospect's mind. They're like, "Oh, what's going on?" Or do you have to repeat that question sometimes?
No, it's a good point there. I think slowing down a little bit, maybe, and just stating a description of what you do with a light benefit or feature, and then maybe a slight pause before asking that. Uh,
Mm,
do I have to repeat it that much? I don't think so. I don't think I do. If I slow that down and say, hey, this is Ryan with Superhuman Prospecting, I'll be transparent. This is a cold call. But in fact, we do cold call appointment setting for companies like yours with a USA based team. Little pause. Do you have a team right now or a partner to help you generate leads and appointments through cold calling into the US? Or have you considered something like that? And if,
mm.
if I'm kind of at that pace, using this framework, um, I haven't had an issue. And I guess that leads to a different point is, hey, there are different frameworks. If we know that this person's generally behind a desk or has more time in their day, I'm going to go in for a more consultative approach like that.
Mm. I saw someone, I think Richmond Taylor in the comments said that this sounds like it works great for if you're selling cold calling outsourcing. But I understand your team works with multiple industries. Most of your clients aren't actually selling revenues, related tech or I hope you're not selling to other companies that sell cold calling outsourcing and then doing their
No.
outsourcing for them. But how could you give me an example of how that might sound if you were selling to a different industry? And I know I'm putting you on the spot there, so you don't
No,
have to.
please.
I'm not going to judge you.
Actually, in fact, we call this the consultative conversation framework. We have 5 frameworks within the methodology that are
Mm-hmm.
based upon that persona, like we talked about. So I could add that same description and then opening for many, many different types of products and services. We have one that's a digital escape room adventure app for colleges and universities that creates an augmented reality experience at these college universities for orientation. And we use the
Yeah.
same opening. Do you have uh, a creative plan for your orientation teams that allows them to use their phone, or have you considered any type of app like that? It's the same opening, but the people that we're speaking to are those that are behind a desk.
Mm.
They're not they're not a, you know, I don't know, a mechanic underneath a vehicle, right? They're not on the go, driving all the time, which we would use a different framework for. They don't have that type of time.
That's interesting. Okay, we kind of hit point five there, where our fifth point is you can be transparent in Europe, and you don't have to declare it as a cold call or a sales call. So why don't we skip to point six, which was a slightly different opener that you shared. Um, which is
Yeah.
actually asking for the meeting at the
Yeah.
very beginning of the call. And I think this is like, I was like, oh wow, this is very different from what we typically hear on the show. So how about this? How would you walk through this?
Yeah. So I think sometimes we think of openers as just that first uh, thing that we say out of our mouth, and then we don't really have a plan for what's next. It's almost like, okay, they're giving me permission to talk. Um, that's more important than what we're trying to accomplish almost. And then I can
Mm,
just kind of, maybe I'll go into the conversation and feel it out and navigate. Sometimes people just don't have the time, and they can get that intuitive sense if we just get to the point and pack it with value. Now, I will caveat this and say we don't use what we call the no bull script approach very, very often. But when we do, it's for markets where it's either a saturated market, maybe like commercial insurance or something, where they're getting a lot of calls around their expiration dates. Maybe it's for those people who are on the go. Like, for instance, we've called for companies calling into trucking owners, and so you don't
mm.
have time. Now, again, I'm just using Superhuman because it's just easy to roll off my tongue right now without looking at all of our clients per se. But if I were to say like us, hey, this is Ryan at Superhuman Prospecting. We do cold call appointment setting for companies like yours with a USA based team and can generate typically 1 to 100 leads for your sales pipeline per month based on your project size and industry. I'm just calling to see. I know you're really busy. We're, doing some research. Thought your company might be a good fit for this. Would you be open for a quick call tomorrow to see if this is something that could work? And I can at least point in the right direction. If not, how's 3 o'clock tomorrow?
So this is before you've even got into a conversation. You're asking for
100%.
being in the opener.
Yeah, it's a pitch and close. Yeah,
Wow. And I'm assuming that must get a lot of objections as response. I mean, it's got to work sometimes, I imagine, but
yeah,
I'd guess based on my experience, the majority of the time you're going to hit with objection. But I guess knowing you're going to hit one, what's the story there?
absolutely. You're always prepared with one. Because again, I mean, you don't expect many people to say yes. Sometimes you do. You get more of the kind of interest-based questions there, like, oh, well, how do you do that? Or what's the pricing? And that's when you know you've got someone who's open to a conversation. But if they
Mm,
say, no, I don't think I want a meeting about this. Okay, well, then you go back into the conversation. If they're still on the phone with you, you're kind of risking some hangups there. But again, you got to know your market. If they're on the go in a saturated market, it can be a good entry into a conversation. You're not, you don't have any tricks up your sleeve about why you're calling. You ask them for the meeting to say, no, I don't think want something like that, or I'm not ready for that. Okay, no problem. Well, have you considered an outsourced team? Have you considered a USA based call team? Have you considered an augmented reality app for your students for a different type of engagement to learn your campus?
mm.
Yeah.
I think this segues us quite nicely into point seven that you mentioned ahead of time. It doesn't really matter who you're talking to. There's only really two things you have to watch out for when it comes to cold calling people. And this relates kind of a little bit to Richmond's comment in the chat earlier. That was that your seventh tip was it's really less about who you're talking to, but more knowing the words that kill the conversation and the words that are going to get them to perk up their ears a little bit.
This has been something that has been a pretty big discovery over the last year at Superhuman. This is something that has drastically changed the outcomes of campaigns by simply moving a few words around or eliminating a few words. This is probably
Mm-hmm.
one of the biggest new tips that we have from discoveries that we've learned at Superhuman. I mean, I look at Superhuman as a laboratory, and so anytime that we have major issues we come across, we kind of dive deeper into that to see what we can find. And this is something new, and I haven't really heard this too much, but buzzkill words, especially for established business types. So
Mm.
what kind of classify business types as two different places within a market saturation. So we have unique, rare, innovative products or service to the market. Think of iPhone when it first came out. It was the first smartphone. Think of Tesla, one of the first electric cars that came out in the modern era. So it's just by stating what it is, immediately piques curiosity and excitement. But guess what? Everyone's got a smartphone now. What makes your smartphone any different? Right? There's a lot more electric cars out there right now. What makes yours any different? So then you move into more of those established business types, commercial insurance, IT, marketing. We're an established business. Lead gen's been around forever. So how do you make it
Mm.
stand out? Well, you have to have something that's different about your features. You have to have accolades or social proof, and or a hook, right? Hey, come to my, I'll give you $50 for coming, or we'll do a lunch and learn. But there's also ways within the messaging to really work the way that the heuristics of the prospect respond in the first 7 seconds. If I say, hey, hey, we're an IT company and we can help you with your cybersecurity, it's probably the most boring opener in all of time at this day and age. So how would I change that? Well, maybe I can say something about the fact that we're local. Maybe I can play a little bit of catchphrase. What words would you say instead of IT or cybersecurity? Right? Well, even if I said this, even if I said we're an information tech company, we're a technology company that helps with removing attacks to your online or your network. And just removing those phrases around can drastically impact the way that they receive those first few words.
Hmm.
And so that's what we consider buzzkill, those words that immediately turn people off.
Yeah, it's like these words that everyone feels that they know what they mean, or they just anyone could say them, right? And it's about changing the words into something that sounds just slightly different to create more curiosity. I've got a couple of questions I want to ask you here, and I'm going to have to touch my screen, which means my thumb's going to be on the thing for now. So used to jumping on a laptop. This is actually an interesting question. This could be a whole show of its own. But Carl said you must deal with a lot of gatekeepers, especially given you gave an example of speaking to schools there. Um, how would you handle it when you get a gatekeeper?
Well, first of all, great question. We love gatekeepers at SHP. And the reason is because many times they have hidden information that if we can unlock, open up so many doors at that company. I think the old school mentality, remember this when we first started, we were our whole method is about building trust with the market, including gatekeepers. And I remember this client wanted us to kind of bash through our stonewall and say, hey, I'm looking for John. And they'd be like, why are you calling? Like, he knows exactly why I'm calling. Don't stop wasting my time send me to John. This whole time, the secretary or gatekeeper is like the spouse of John, you know? So got rid of that really quickly. It doesn't build trust. And that's the secret. Many times these folks can be stakeholders. In fact, we got a similar situation later where we asked for Mary and we got Nathan on the phone. And Nathan happened to be, and Mary was the owner. Nathan happened to be the husband of Mary, and they were both co-owners. So we said, well, what's the call regarding? Well, I'm looking for Mary. We thought this could really help. This is what we do. Is she the right person I could speak with, or is it somebody else like yourself? And he goes, well, actually, Mary's my wife. I'm actually part owner. Got into that conversation, opened up the door, got a meeting out of it.
Yeah, so it sounds like your approach would be to not just try and bash past them or potentially even lie to them. It's more of like using it, at the very least, getting some information out of them, but sometimes actually, having a worthwhile conversation because these people actually are important to the business and the person that you actually are trying to reach.
In fact, many times, the more questions they ask, the more likely they are to have influence on the decision. Keyword influence, not always a decision maker, but that means the more they know about the decision-making process or how this product or service might help them or not. So typically we'll say our team is trained to say almost every time, unless we're 100% certain what the person's name that we're calling is the right person, hey, I'm looking for Will or the person in charge of podcasts over at Sell Better. Is it Will or is it somebody else? Is it you? And it comes in. So it's almost that transparency thing. Like, this is a cold call and I'm here to help. Are you the right person to speak with? Or is Will or is there someone else in charge of podcasts there? And it sounds counterintuitive, but gatekeepers are sick and tired of the same old trying to have to put up their guard so much.
Yeah.
So going in that way seems to help us.
They're literally trained to identify us, so trying to hide anything from them is not going to work. Okay, we're going to bash through the last three tips. We've got 5 minutes, and I've left us with a little bit of time here. You said number 8, your eighth tip here, it's going to rub some people the wrong way. You said tone is overrated.
Yeah.
Defend your stance, though, because that's the opposite of what everyone else is saying on LinkedIn.
Yeah, and you could fact check me, and I would used to say tone is everything. You could look back. Yeah. But I've learned, I don't know what it is, like sometime around COVID and after, while tone is like icing on the cake, it's not the whole thing. It is a great addition. I would never say to not try and have tone, but actually, what's more important is having a confident direction in your conversation that provides benefit, help, curiosity, and value. And so the reason I know this is because we listen to a lot of recordings at SHP, and many times we'll listen to that and we'll be so focused on what the SDR is saying and how they're saying it. But if you listen to only the other side, the receiving end, they're almost dying for more information and want the meeting.
Mm.
And we're like, wait a minute, this person does not sound like we would put them, in any type of musical or play about sales. But but the way that the person's receiving the information is exactly what we would want. So what the SDR was doing well at is following the checkpoints within the method, asking that question, providing the right value, pausing correctly, opening up a discovery question, answering the qualifying questions, and just methodically going through like a normal human talking like themselves.
Mm.
And the person's still interested. And so if you really just focus on that prospect, you'll hear it doesn't always mean that tone is king. And I think that's the point there.
Love it. It's almost not worth overthinking in a way.
Not worth overthinking. Does it
Yeah.
does it make you a superstar? Probably. But what's more, are you throwing out the baby with the bathwater, basically, if you're just throwing out the pitch without and keeping the tone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We got to rush, not rush,
Yeah.
should I say?
Yeah, no, please.
1 minute. Number 9. What if you get hung up on?
Yeah, this one is okay. So I'm going to caveat this for everyone as well. As someone who works for an outsourced SDR company, I'm going to answer this probably differently, maybe than someone who works for an individual product, because we're representing lots of different brands. So I would say we have to be careful, and we don't want to hurt anyone's brand. Mm-hmm. So if we get, if we get a hang up, if it's right away, we would say, either call back right away or leave a note to call again a few days later. If it's not confirmed that it's even the decision maker, though, we would definitely call back again until at least we've heard that same thing 2 times.
Got it. All right.
Yeah.
I'd love
So
to still more, but we don't have a ton of time on that one. So the last tip you gave was pausing. I know. I hate to do that, but then we have time for 1 or 2 questions.
Yeah.
So the last tip, number 10, pause.
Pause.
Or as an American would say, pause. Sorry.
Pause. That's like Boston. I feel like that's Boston. Right. Yeah.
You say you're from what, Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah, we say it a little bit. Pause. That's how we would say it.
Okay.
A Delco accent. I would say that in terms of pausing, I would look at it as checkpoints of a call, and then I would look at it as pausing and then tone. That's how I would rank it. I think pausing does a couple things. It shows that you're confident what you're saying, and you don't have the nervousness to just talk over and not allow your prospect to think. Okay. You can do it without even noticing it. You're not nervous, but it can be kind of a part of, feeling nervous and needing to feel like there's no gap.
Absolutely.
What the pausing does, and this is a pretty classic tip, but it's almost a reminder too. Pause, micro pauses, larger pauses. Slow down. That enables conversation. Prepare yourself what you're going to say next. It's almost better to have that prepared and give it a bigger punch than talk fast and try to avoid awkward silences.
Absolutely, Ryan. I'm very curious because a lot of the stuff you spoke about today is kind of the opposite of what a lot of the advice that I see out there. Some of the advice I give myself. So I'd love to drill in on that more, but we are a little bit short on time. So I have one question for you from the audience here so we can get to. Aaron Reisman said he's using a lot of close-ended yes-no questions. He's always been told or trained to do open-ended questions to get a conversation going. Where do you feel like the two, open-ended and close-ended, play their best?
Great question. I'd love to have another conversation about that. Yeah. I would say in the beginning, limit your open-ended questions, because the first 7 seconds is nothing to do with pitching, it has everything to do with getting out of the stigma that they already have about you. They're thinking that, you're a customer. And when they find out that, you're a salesperson, it's not the easiest to control unless you have the science locked down.
Yeah.
You're building trust. As you get past those first 7 seconds, rapport and trust start to build. So ask the opening-ended questions later in the conversation, once you know that you've kind of have a little bit more freedom to go back and forth.
Absolutely killer last tip there, Ryan. Thank you ever so much for walking through this. So interesting. Where can people learn more from you and more about you?
Yeah. So you can learn LinkedIn. I'm trying to post. You can buy my book, Trust Call. It's on Amazon. It's at thehmethod.com. I talk a lot about this stuff. And on Superhuman Prospecting's website, I have my email and phone number. Text me, email me, call me.
Boom. Beautiful. Thank you ever so much, Ryan. And thank you everyone for joining today. And big thank you again to our partner for today's show, Just Cool. Funnily enough, rhymes with your book name, Trust Cool. Go pick up a copy. I'll be doing the same because I'm very curious to learn more. Thank you ever so much, Ryan.
Thanks, everybody. Bye now.